So you went to bed early, you got a full 8 hours, and you still woke up exhausted. Sound familiar? It's not just your age. Your hormones and your nervous system are working against your rest. Let's talk about that. Welcome back. If you're new, I'm Dr. Anjali, and this month we're really diving into the functional side of health. So, your gut, your hormones, and your resilience, particularly after the age of 35. So, today we're talking about one of the most frustrating symptoms that I hear in my office. I wake up tired, and even after 8 hours of sleep, I'm still tired. So, if this is you, you've probably wondered, is it just my age? Is it something wrong with my hormones? Is it something that I'm just doomed to experience and feel for the rest of my life? And the truth is that sleep challenges after 35 are not just about getting older. They're about the intersection of hormones and stress and the nervous system and how it all fits together. Once you understand how these pieces connect, you can take back some control over your energy. So let's talk about one of my practice members. We'll call her Maria. She is 38. She's trying to conceive. She works full time and she has a 5-year-old at home. So she came in exhausted, saying, I go to bed at 10, I wake up at 6, and that's 8 hours of sleep. And yet I'm still so tired all the time. So her labs, like many times that we talked about, her blood work was quote unquote normal. Her thyroid was quote unquote in range, and her iron wasn't flagged. Her OB basically said, you're fine. Come back in 6 months and we'll retest your blood work. But she didn't feel fine. And maybe you've been there too, being told that everything is fine, everything is normal, but your body really feels anything but fine or normal. So what we found with Maria was that her hormones were shifting and her nervous system was in a near constant state of fight or flight. But she had been so used to navigating that level of stress that it didn't feel like it was anything new or unfamiliar or unmanageable. And her sleep wasn't restorative because her body didn't really feel safe enough to fully rest. So let's unpack this a little bit more. When it comes to hormones, let's talk about cortisol. This is your stress hormone. And ideally, it should peak in the morning and it should start to taper down and drop off at its lowest point at night before you go to sleep. But for so many women, chronic stress really keeps that cortisol high into the evening. And so sometimes you'll have maybe decent cortisol to start off your day, but rather than tapering down, it starts to increase as the day goes on, and worse if it's increasing as the evening is starting to approach, as you're starting to prepare for bed. And that can make it really challenging to fall into that deep sleep. Or for a number of people, cortisol can remain consistently low, right? So you wake up, and even though you have the highest amount of cortisol in the morning, it's still a very low amount of cortisol. And so then the body is trying to just keep up with day to day demands, and we just don't have enough reserve to keep us actually resting well. Or there's the hormone of progesterone. And a lot of people know this as the calming hormone. But progesterone also starts to decline more after the age of 35. And so low levels of progesterone can make you more restless or anxious, or they can make you more prone to waking up at night. And then there's melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. And this isn't just influenced by light, but it's also impacted by your cortisol. So if cortisol is high at night, melatonin can't rise properly. And we'll talk more about this in one of the coming weeks, but serotonin is that feel good hormone and it's produced in the gut. So we'll talk more about the gut brain connection, but serotonin converts into melatonin. So it's really important, like we talked about last week, in terms of digestion of fats. We'll talk about digestion and gut health in general, but why that's really important to actually impact your sleep quality as well, your melatonin levels. So even though you might be asleep for 8 hours, your brain might be cycling in these lighter stages of sleep. So instead of getting into the deep restorative sleep, you end up feeling still fatigued and tired even after you've technically been in bed for a while. So that's really the kicker, is that you can really try to do everything right, the dark room, the no caffeine, or the supplements. But if your nervous system still feels like it's in danger, your body just won't let you drop into full rest, right? We talked about last week how if we are in a state of fight or flight or that nervous system sympathetic activation, our body is not going to prioritize our core function, including digestion. So, similarly, if we are in that activated state of fight or flight, it is really challenging for our brain to communicate to the rest of the body and for the body to communicate back to the brain that it is, in fact, actually safe, and that it can make it challenging for us to get into that true restoration mode. So, this is just really survival wiring because the nervous system is saying, stay alert just in case something happens. And that wiring often becomes stronger after the age of 35. And that might be when you're trying to balance work and family. You might be TTC or in the perimenopausal, menopausal stages. So, what can you do? Here's a few functional resets that I would recommend. One would be to have an evening flow. This could be just a few minutes, 5, 7 minutes of gentle movement, stretching, rolling your shoulders, or using a simple yoga flow. This can help discharge the stress that your body has been holding. So, allowing your body time to hold a stretch rather than just trying to perceive it as movement for your brain, right? So, stretching, we have a ton of great videos that you can look at on this YouTube channel, but looking at, are there areas that you tend to notice that you carry stress in your body? So, do you tend to have tight upper back and neck, right? The kind of the universal stress point. Do you carry it in your hips? Do you carry it in your low back? What do you tend to notice? And trying to focus at least a few minutes on that area. You can certainly do full body stretches and a little bit of gentle movement, but that will allow your body to recognize that you're actually trying to stretch and that you're not just moving. So, movement is so important. We talk a lot about movement, especially last month, but we really want to make sure that there is intentional movement along with stretching. So, the next reset you could try would be incorporating some breath work. So, we talked about this previously also, but trying a humming breath. And if you have kids, you can try this with them at bedtime because humming will reactivate or activate that calming response in the body. So when you're feeling restless or anxious, having a humming breath, and this is something your kids can do, right? If they have a favorite song, they can hum along with you, or trying the 4-7-8 breathing, which we've talked about also. But in case you need a refresher, 4 is the count that you would take your inhale. So for a count of 4 or for 4 seconds, inhaling, holding for 7, for a count of 7 or for 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8, a count of 8 or 8 seconds. And this is because the exhale is twice as long as the inhale, right? This 4-7-8. And that increased exhalation is allowing for the parasympathetic response, that rest and restoration response to settle in. So this can really signal to your nervous system that it's really feeling more safe now for us to get into rest. You could also try having some good nourishment before bed. I wouldn't suggest having a big meal before you go to sleep or soon before you try to go to sleep. Having a small protein rich snack, whether that's a little bit of yogurt or nut butter with some fiber, like a couple slices of a green apple or some celery sticks or carrot sticks, can really help to stabilize your blood sugar, preventing that 2 a.m. cortisol spike. So, a lot of people will tend to wake up between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. So, having a little bit of protein before you go to sleep allows for that rest and restoration to occur, and it allows your body to work more on cellular repair as you're sleeping rather than going through that blood sugar crash. Of course, there's light hygiene, which a lot of people are already trying to incorporate, but dimming the lights an hour before bed, maybe, and trying to look at reading or journaling instead of scrolling on your phone. And the other thing, a lot of people talk about taking melatonin supplements, which we can talk about that in a different video. While melatonin is so important for our sleep, I don't always recommend that you actually take melatonin supplements long term because it can throw things off with your hormones. But you could consider having some increased magnesium support. So whether you do a foot soak or an Epsom salt bath, or you use magnesium powders, there's one that I really like that I have linked below, or if you take leafy greens, magnesium can be really effective at calming the nervous system and relaxing the musculature in our bodies. So especially if you tend to notice cramping or restless legs, this can be potentially a really great way to help support that. And a sign that you might be getting too much magnesium would be that if you start to notice loose stools, then might be time to back down a little bit on your magnesium. But for many people, magnesium can be really effective. Or one of my favorite ways to get magnesium is to do a flow tank, right? Because you're just soaking in really, really dense Epsom salts for an hour. And so it's really allowing for increased magnesium into the tissues of the body. So these resets are not about trying to attain perfection. It's about sending really small but repeated signals of safety to your body. So, this is why it matters so much, particularly after the age of 35. Because after 35, your body's margin for stress is much thinner. So, poor sleep isn't just about feeling groggy and then caffeinating your way through the day to make up for it, but it can really impact your fertility, your hormone balance, your mood, and in general, your long term health. When we restore our sleep, we really are restoring our foundation for health and wellness. So, if you've been waking up tired and exhausted and trying to figure out what's wrong, please hear this. It's not just your age, and it's not all in your head. Your hormones and your nervous system are asking for support. And the good news is that there are ways to begin shifting that cycle. So, if you'd like some support, I've included everything here in the evening reset checklist. It's inside of this month's functional resilience guide. So, the link is below. This is really designed for women over the age of 35, and it walks you through exactly what to try in the hour before you go to sleep. So you can download it through the link. And thank you for being here. I'm going to show you next week when we talk about immune support during that back to school season and why stress regulation is the most powerful way to support your family's health. Thanks for joining us.